Hi, everybody. Welcome to House Call with Dr. Brian McHugh. Our guest today is Marty Lyons. Marty was born in Tacoma Park, Maryland in 1957, and then went on to play college football at the University of Alabama under the legendary coach Paul Bear Bryant. He was part of the Crimson Tide team that won the national championship in 1978 and was an exceptional defensive lineman, earning All-American honors during that season. He then went on to be selected by the New York Jets in the first round of the 1979 NFL Draft and was a member of the much heralded sack exchange for the Jets team during that era, where he played defensive tackle from 1979 to 1989. In his post-NFL career, he started the Marty Lyons Foundation, which since inception has raised over $43 million?
Over 43.
Over $43 million. And that focuses on medical advancements in the pediatric space for children with terminally ill conditions. And we're very privileged to have him here today as our guest for a general conversation about life. And thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks so much for being here, Marty. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So, like I was telling everybody, we just kind of do informal discussions. It'd be great to know a little bit about you and how you got to where you are. Obviously, a successful career in the NFL. As a young man in junior high school, was it obvious you were going to play football? Was that like a passion, or did you?
No, I tell you, to be honest with you, my real passion was baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Because my dad was a retired police officer. He retired in 1963. Mm-hmm. You know, I have 4 brothers and 2 sisters, so we all moved to Pinellas Park down there in Florida, right outside St. Petersburg. So with 7 kids and your father's retired cop and your mom's a registered nurse, you know, we didn't have a lot. But what we did have was, you know, that family attitude. Yeah. My parents believed in education. They believed in religion. Yeah. And they believed in sports. Mm-hmm. So on any given Sunday, it was an event. It wasn't an option. You were going to go to church. My dad was the head usher. You know, one of those guys standing up there going, hey, two more up here. You know, passing the basket back and forth. And we all went to the same grade school. We all went to the same high school. So having 3 older brothers at the same high school, when I first went in 1972, you know, expectations were, hey, wow, you're going to be, another Lions is coming through here. You're going to be as good as your brothers.
Oh, right.
And expectations, the pressure was hard. So my freshman year, I had a brother, Dan, who was a junior. And out there at football, I still remember the day that, you know, being a small Catholic school, you probably had 29 to 30 players out there. So they had to move up to freshmen. So they had bodies to beat up on. Yeah. Well, I just happened to be one of those guys. And at that time, I was a fullback. And there was a coach named Bill Clyer. Uh-huh. And we had this drill called the hamburger drill. And the quarterback would take it, give it to the running back, and then you'd have to run straight into the linebacker in between 2 dummies. Right. And at that time, they could still grab your face mask. It was old school. They grab your face mask.
I didn't realize that was allowed ever.
Well, they carried a clipboard too, and that wasn't just to carry notes for practice. That was to hit you over the helmet with if you got out of line. And Bill Clyer was old school, and he came up to me and he said, just remember, there's nobody out here that can tackle you. Yeah. And I ran the ball, and I got tackled. And he said, run it again. I ran the ball, and I got tackled. About the 4th time, I finally ran the guy over. Right. Just because he might have been not that athletic, right? Or I got lucky. Yeah. And he came back and he grabbed my face mask one more time. He said, I want you to remember that. Nobody out here can tackle you. Now, it was a great message. It was the way he illustrated it. Yeah. That the very next day, we got up to go back to practice. And my brother Dan came in there and said, come on, we got to get to practice. I said, Dan, I'm done. I quit. Yeah. He goes, really? Yeah, I'm done with football. Yeah. And he says, what do you mean you're done? I said, you know what, Coach Clyer did this, he did. And my brother Dan was, 2 years older. He looked at me like he was my dad. He goes, I'm not going to allow you to quit. Yeah. You quit now, you'll continue to quit the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. So I went back to practice, and everything worked out. Bill Clyer ended up retiring after my freshman year, and we had a coach come in by the name of George O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
And George was more friendly to the players,
Right.
had more respect for the players.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, he started sending out films
Yeah.
to colleges saying, hey, this kid can play at the next level.
Yeah.
And then by my junior year, I was getting recruited. My senior year, the recruits were in the stands. But George O'Brien played a big part of that.
That's interesting. There's a parallel in medicine. Like when you're training in medicine, you go through all the different disciplines, and people choose different areas for like what interests you. But I always found what would really pull people in was more the social experience, and that had a lot to do with the mentorship. And they're not coaching, obviously, but it's essentially the same thing. And if it was an inviting set of mentors, people would walk away thinking, oh, I really liked, gastroenterology. And it's like, did you? Or was it just, someone who took you under their wing,
Right.
taught you something, and you walked away feeling fulfilled, maybe is the wrong word, but, it was a positive experience. And during that period, were you still playing baseball? Or?
Oh, I was playing football, basketball, and baseball.
Yeah.
And I remember going as a young kid with my mom, watching one of my older brothers play basketball and saying, God, man, he's good.
Yeah.
I want to be that good.
Yeah, yeah.
And I knew as soon as I got on the basketball court, if I was that good, I would be recognized.
Yeah.
If I was better than him,
Yeah.
I would have all the records when I left as
Yeah.
a senior. And I'm fortunate that I had great teammates and great coaching in all three of the sports, and all those records were mine when
Nice.
I left. But I share them with everybody that I played with because you're only as good as the people you line up with.
Yeah.
I was up for the leading scorer in basketball in the county, and the last game, I was neck and neck with a guy from Clearwater Catholic, and he was averaging like 22 or 23 points. I was 23, 2. The last game of the year, he scored 25. I scored 49.
Yeah.
So it was, the teammates wanted me to have it.
Yeah.
So they kept passing me the ball.
Oh, wow, that's
And when you shoot 25 free throws at the end of the game,
Right.
you're going to score some points.
Yeah, right. So, but you excelled at football, and that was sort of a natural next fit, and you're getting offers to play at the next level for that, and so it just becomes the way forward, basically.
Right. Well, I think you want to go somewhere, too, to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to go to Miami, Florida, or Florida State, but that was just too close to my house. I could get in the car when times got tough.
Yeah.
You could always get in your car and go home and be around your high school buddies, and you're still the big fish in the little pond.
Yeah.
When you're away at the University of Alabama playing for a legendary coach like Coach Bryant,
Yeah.
and you're playing so that you can possibly make it to the next level, you're a very small fish in a big pond.
Yeah, different field.
And you have to go all over. And Coach Bryant always had a philosophy that if you were going to quit, you were going to quit on yourself or quit on your teammates. You would do it during practice, not during a game, which means our practices,
Yeah.
it was living hell.
Yeah. Right.
From the start to the finish. Coach Bryant was going to challenge you.
When obviously as a young man moving into that next level with someone like Coach Bryant, there's that perspective. Now, as someone who went on to develop such a reputation as a professional, when you look back at that time, what were the most salient takeaways from someone like Coach Bryant for you as a
I think Coach Bryant was more than a coach. I think he was a guy that looked at all the players and realized some of you will be good enough to play in the NFL, but I'm going to teach you the qualities that you need, the core values that you need in life so that you can be successful when the game of football ends. And I think he prepared every one of his players that way from day one. He said, I want you to be proud of your family. I want you to be proud of your religion. I want you to get an education. And if we have time, let's try to win some football games. And, of course, 18 years old and close to 700 miles away from home, I'm scratching my head going, you're playing for a coach that doesn't even care about winning football games.
Yeah.
But what he did was he took complete strangers and made sure that we understood that we had to appreciate one another, had to trust one another, and had to go to work with one another to be successful on the football field. And to only lose 6 games in 4 years,
that's
I think it was a tribute to all the coaches, all the players, and the fan base for the University of Alabama. I don't know if there's a better fan base out there.
Yeah, rabid fan base. And during that time, sorry for my ignorance on this, were you already inside a tackle, or were you playing defensive?
Down in college, we played a 5-2, which meant there was really a nose tackle, 2 defensive tackles, and the defensive ends, which were outside linebackers, they were on the line of scrimmage.
Okay.
So I played defensive tackle there.
Okay.
And the ironic thing is, playing in the Senior Bowl, after we won the national championship, the New York Jets coached the North team.
Yeah.
I was on the South team. We were coached by Dick Nolan of the New Orleans Saints. And as a defensive tackle, I was the defensive player of the game for the South team. And actually, Mark Gastineau was the defensive player for the North team. And then for us both to be drafted 1-2 by the Jets, it was a perfect showcase for both of us.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, that's pretty cool. One of the things we always look for opportunities with our guests where there's crossover with neurosurgery and spine surgery, what we're doing, and where the guest is coming from. And there's a lot with the NFL, and there's a lot with professional athletes. From the neurosurgery standpoint, obviously this kind of postdates your career, but the CTE stuff, when you think back and you were playing during an era where that hadn't been recognized yet, can you look back and recognize concussions, or do you think you never really been part of your career? Or?
Well, to be honest with you, Brian, when you have 2 fingers up and they ask you how many you have and you go 3 and they go close enough, get back in there.
Yeah, right.
You just got back in there.
Yeah.
I don't think the medical field, the doctors, would ever put a player at risk.
Yeah, right.
Because I don't think they knew the long-term effect of head injuries.
No.
We did have the option that if we had a problem with our knee, a problem with any part of your body, to take an injection before the game.
Yeah.
Maybe take one at halftime, which will ease the pain. They always left that as an option to the players.
Yeah.
And some players took it, some players didn't. And I always felt that if that would enhance my ability to play, then I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
And they would put it right there on the table, and they go, right there, you can take that. That's going to help you. You're not going to have any more pain until after the game, and then we'll give you another one. But
have you paid attention at all to the changes they've made from the head contact stuff?
I have.
That
with all the devices that they put inside
it's pretty impressive.
The helmet. And now they have an independent doctor at all the games. If they can see something, they're going to call down to the head official, and the head official is going to go take that individual off, make sure that he goes through the concussion protocol. I think that the safety factor now is being emphasized more and more. Because if you look back at all the players that have struggled physically, mentally, those that have taken their own lives, there's got to be some correlation between head injuries, concussions, and a way to try to solve it so that players that are coming in the league now, they don't have to worry about it. But it's a violent game.
It is,
There's only so much a doctor can do and so much padding can do to protect you. But the head is one of those delicate part of the body that you really need.
I thought one of the interesting things that came out of the research was you would sort of imagine that it's the big hit, running backs and people that are really getting high velocity stuff, when it was the linemen, and they kind of zeroed in on the smaller but more frequent impacts were the problem. I feel like that was a good sign for the game, because okay, you can make some adjustments so that you're not, the nose tackle's not just headbutting everybody every play, and it doesn't really impact the game too much. Whereas, that somebody coming across the middle and really getting hit, once. Yeah, okay, nobody should collide helmets, but that's still okay to have that be part of the game. That's not really leading into CTE too much, and that's what makes it such an exciting game to watch. I always thought that was kind of good news in that regard. We were neurosurgery was involved, I think, from the beginning with the Pittsburgh Steelers and a couple guys there that got involved with all the studies and the helmet development and stuff like that. That technology is amazing as far as I could tell.
Well, you look at Mike Webster.
Yeah.
He ended up taking his own life, which was a shame. An outstanding Hall of Fame center.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it went back to also the teaching, the technique.
Yeah, right.
In Alabama, we were taught a headbutt and a hand shiver.
Yeah.
First thing that hit is your helmet, and then you get separated.
Yeah.
And I think that helped me my first couple of years in the NFL, and then sitting there and working with Joe Klecko, you'd look at the front of my helmet at the end of the year was always torn up.
Yeah.
Where you either hit somebody's face mask or you hit their chin strap clip, and it was chewed up.
Yeah.
And you looked at Joe Klecko's helmet, and he didn't even have a single mark on it.
Huh.
And I would say, Joe, well, how can you not use your head? He goes, because you got to use your hands. He goes, use your hands. Get your hands extended so there's no head contact.
Yeah, right.
And then you get the separation.
Yeah, yeah. And then another area where we, especially in my practice with a lot of spinal stuff, that gets into the corner of the sort of the orthopedic area. As you moved through, many of us are kind of, or feel invincible when we're 18, 19, 20. As you're then a professional playing for the Jets, were you guys aware at the time of like, oh man, I got to take care of my body? Or was that era in the 70s, 80s, like before that? Like, nowadays, guys, I think I was watching Tom Brady had a physical therapist come and do prehab before the season where he's stretching out and mobility work. Was that a big part of it back then, or was it kind of...
No, I think you were responsible to take care of your own body. I think that the orthopedic doctors we had looked at chiropractors.
Yep.
And didn't want them involved.
Okay.
The chiropractor, late in my career, the chiropractor would eventually get introduced to the NFL. But when I first came in, they weren't accepted.
Interesting.
It was just like they were on the outside. And I think you can get yourself in the best playing condition that you can possibly do. But when you get out there, it's totally different.
Yeah.
Back then we had two-a-days,
Yeah.
morning and afternoon. There was no limitation on how long that practice could be. We had Walt Michaels as a head coach. If he got pissed off at you halfway through practice, he'd blow the whistle and we started over. And you went back to stretching and calisthenics and individual drills, and that 2.5-hour practice would be almost 4 hours. But now the NFL is limiting how long you can be out there on the field, how many days you can practice in full gear. And I think a lot of the injuries now occur early in the season because the players aren't in football shape. They're in shape, but they're not in football contact shape.
Right.
And you're seeing a lot of these non-contact injuries because you're treating it as you're a light switch.
Yeah.
I'm ready, and you flip it and you want to go 100%, but you can't. You try going 100%. But then you have those non-contact injuries.
Yeah.
A lot of people blame it on the playing surface, which it could be.
Fair enough.
But injuries are always going to be a part of the game, and you can never eliminate that.
Yeah, no, it's not going to be eliminated. Back then, were you guys using... I was a kid during that era. I remember guys in ice baths, I feel like. Would that be part... What was your post-game routine, if anything?
Get as many ice bags as you could.
Really? You would do that? Yeah.
And then I remember when I tore a hamstring, they were giving me, taking the ice bags and just rubbing your leg till it turned almost purple.
Right.
And trying to get the blood circulating. And I go, that ain't working.
Yeah.
But there's nothing better than ice.
Yeah.
And then there's nothing better than rest.
Yeah, true.
But if you can't rest, like Joe Klecko at one time, he would come out of the game on a Sunday. They would put him in a walking cast.
No kidding.
For his ankle,
okay.
or his foot. Yeah. Maybe it might have been his arch. And then he would go through the whole week. Right before the game, they'd cut the cast off, tape him up, and he'd play.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
so, free agency didn't exist.
Yep.
So you had to play.
Yep. Yep.
And when your teammates are looking for you, not just for your ability out there on the field, but your leadership, there's something inside every one of us that says, hey, you know what? I want to play. I want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And you get out there and you compete to the best of your ability.
So you go on, I mean, you obviously had a heck of a run at Alabama. You go on to the Jets, clearly, to more success. When you look back at the finding success at each of those levels, were you surprised to find that there was a next level? Like when you're playing at such a high level and then to move up even from there, what was that experience like?
You know what? I think that if you get complacent in life, you get stagnant. You fail.
Yeah.
You can. I never reached my potential in the NFL. I ran out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always try to be better than the year before.
It's interesting.
Hopefully that worked out. And I have the respect of my teammates, and I have the self-respect that I tried my best.
Yeah.
But I never got complacent and said, hey, you know what? I'm so good. I don't have to worry about next year.
Yeah.
Next year was always a challenge for me because majority of the time I was coming off some injury or some operation.
Yeah.
They would take a body part out and say, hey, don't worry, you don't need it anyway. And I'd go, what? God messed up and gave me a cartilage in my right leg, and now you're telling me I don't need it? But that was, I would do it all over again.
Yeah.
Anything that you have the passion to do, and you have a dream about doing it, then you got to chase it.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be risk in everything that you do.
Yeah.
You find your platform, and then you find your purpose in life, and then you can be successful. When you don't have a passion for it, then it's time to leave.
Yeah.
When I retired in 1991, that wasn't really by my choice. That was a choice that the organization made, that they were going to go in a different direction, keep players that weren't as good as me, but they had to get younger. And I had seen it happen to so many of my friends.
Yeah.
Why I was there. It was the business part of the game. It didn't mean the Jets didn't like you.
Yeah.
Didn't mean that they didn't respect you as a player. It was just time to move on. And anybody that left that had resentment toward the organization because they were treated that way didn't fully understand that football is a business, and they didn't understand that aspect to the NFL.
In your mind, looking back at your own body and your own skill set, like what age would you say that was? Is it similar for everyone, or is it depend-
No, I think there's some players that can play longer.
Yep.
Because they're in the position that you're not getting banged around all the time.
Yeah.
You look at the quarterback, you look at Tom Brady, Tom Brady was fortunate to be in the system, and he was good enough that he had guys up front.
Yeah.
Just an outstanding athlete. You look at some of the defensive linemen that their careers are cut short only because of injury. And now you have to take into that equation money.
Yeah.
When you're getting paid too much money, or you're on the free agency market, they're gonna what dollars are going to be dead money, what's going to count toward the cap.
Right.
There's a system that goes into it, where left tackles now are getting paid a lot of money because they protect the quarterback. And it's a quarterback-driven league.
Yeah.
If you don't have a quarterback driving the bus, you won't go too far.
Yeah, right. Is there like an average age in today's league where a tackle would typically kind of be toward the end of the career, or is it really based on performance? Like,
I think it's based on performance, is based on keeping your body in shape. I think life expectancy overall for an NFL player is maybe just under 4 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Because you get those exceptions that guys have come in the league. A perfect example is John Nitti. John Nitti was with the Jets, but I don't know if he ever played in a regular season game because he kept getting hurt.
Yeah.
And he's the only player that I know of that was on all three rosters: the Jets, the Giants, and the New Jersey Generals, I believe that they were called, from the USFL, but kept getting hurt.
Yeah.
If he didn't have bad luck, he didn't have any luck at all.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because, you work your whole life to get there and then you want to stay healthy, but your body just keeps breaking down.
Yeah. As you had attained the success you did and maybe, I don't know, maybe midway through your career with the Jets where you are at the pinnacle, it sounds like the answer to this is no, but did you ever have a hard time? Did it ever not challenge you and excite you, or was every season you were up for it, or did you?
I was up for every season. I was optimistic every
Yep.
season.
Yep.
I prepared for every season.
Yeah.
I never took the next season for granted.
Yeah. It's
because I knew the way the system worked.
You knew it would come to an end. You knew.
You knew it would come to an end, whether you decided to retire or the organization decided they were going to cut you, or you could retire with class.
Yeah, right.
And I knew in '91, when I was given that option, I was going to stay in New York. I was going to make my livelihood here in New York. I had a foundation for terminally ill children. I had a network of people.
You already had it?
I started the foundation in 1982.
Oh, interesting.
When I was still playing.
Okay. Yeah.
I think everybody goes through challenging days or challenging events that changes your life. And in March of 1982, my oldest son was born on March 4th. My dad suddenly died of a heart attack on March 8th, and a little boy that I was a big brother to died of leukemia on March 10th. And, having all of the God-given tools and the athletic ability and the platform of playing in the NFL and being 25 years old, I couldn't understand how this could happen to me.
Yeah.
Why God would punish me and give me a beautiful son, but in the same breath, in a matter of 6 days, take away my dad.
Yeah.
And take away Keith.
Yeah.
So in memory of my father and Keith, I started the foundation in 1982.
Wow.
So now we're going on 42 years.
42 years. That's what inspired it back then. And the way you were looking at it back then, how you just described, like why would God kind of do this to me? When you look back at that now as a older man, how do you view that? What would you say to someone who's younger who has something like that same scenario develop? Like what wisdom?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would tell them, you can't ask why. Because there's not going to be an answer that you're going to say, okay, I can live with that. Second thing, you can't be mad at God. You can't.
Yeah.
And the third thing is to realize that the only thing we all have in common is one day we're all going to die. We can't pick the time, we can't pick the place, we can't pick how we're going to die. But the one thing for sure is we're all going to die.
Yeah.
So I grew up after those 6 days, and I had to find a vehicle that allowed me to move on. And when I talk to parents who lose children, I tell each and every one of them, you got to get up tomorrow and take a walk and put a line on the pavement if that's as far as you can go. And I said, the second day, get up and see that line, walk 1 or 2 steps further. But we got to keep moving forward. It's like the quote from Martin Luther King: if you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But whatever you have to do, you have to keep moving forward, because life is not going to stop the day you lose someone. It doesn't even give you time to heal. So whoever made up that statement, time heals everything, I look at him and I said, you know what, excuse the expression, that's bullshit. You find a vehicle that allows you to move on. I found the vehicle to start a foundation with the help of my teammate, Kenny Shroy, with the people here on Long Island, and said, you know what, let's take the wishes of terminally ill children that are getting cheated out of life, that you don't even hear about, and take their greatest wish in life and make it become a reality. And when you look back 42 years ago when we started to where we are now, to say, wow, man, you've raised over $43 million. You took those events in your life and,
made them positive.
Yeah, now you're in 14 states and you've helped over 8,400 families.
It just so happened we were doing this interview today, and then I just so happened to be reading. I just picked up Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He's for anyone who doesn't know, that's a very famous book, but he's a famous emperor of Rome and I'm going to butcher this, but I think the 160s to 170s AD. And in the book, there's the beginning of the book is a bunch of aphorisms that he's famous for, and he was a known Stoic philosopher. Or I don't think he'd describe it that way, but he's a known Stoic. One of the lines is whether you lose life at a young age or an old age, it's still an instant that you're losing, and it's the same loss no matter you're young or you're old. And I'm probably butchering the quote to some degree also, but that kind of landed when I heard it this morning, because I put it on like an audio book on the car, and I had done some research on the foundation. So it's an interesting thought where all we have is the instant or the moment, and if you lose it when you're 82 or you lose it when you're 8,
right,
you're still losing the same thing that moment. And you guys are in this space where you're making at least elements of those moments better than they otherwise would be. And somehow, I'm not articulating well, but that sort of struck a chord with me, where our business is unfortunately often dealing with end-of-life issues also. And I've always been struck by how strong people are when they're dealing with that news. As someone who hasn't had to deal with that news, knock on wood, but we all will, right? And as someone who has to deliver that kind of news frequently, humanity's strengths always struck me. People will kind of take it in stride, and you'd think, how can they possibly do that? But it's almost part of the natural cycle of things. There's something innate within us, whether that's God or whatever you call it, that recognizes that as natural, for lack of a better word. So I hadn't realized that you guys had started this when you were a player. How did you find the time to? I mean, there's an off season, I guess.
You have the off season, but it's surrounding yourself with a good team, good support team, you know. And just to reiterate what you were talking about, I remember sitting down there, sitting in the intensive care unit with a young man by the name of Jonathan, and Jonathan was dying of cancer. And he was 17 years old. And I said to him, Jonathan, what have you learned through this whole ordeal? What message do you want me to share with people? And he said, very similar to you. He said, tell people life is short no matter how long you live. And you started thinking about the quote, and I walked out, I go, that really didn't make any sense at the time. But what he was saying is, just like you, no matter how long you live, you could live to be 80 or you pass away at the age of 8, man. This world's going to go on. And no matter what your number is, it's really going to be a short time here. Yeah, relatively. So make it relative to everything you're going to do. But I truly believe everybody can make an impact. Everybody can make a difference. I'm one of those guys that always like to be on time, and I learned how to read upside down being in the huddle, so I can look over at your notes, Brian, and see what you got written. I'm pretty good at reading upside down. And I remember going into a office one day, and there was a little brochure there, and it had 3 lines on it. And I started reading the lines, and the first one said, to dream anything you want, that's the beauty of the human mind. The second line said, to do anything you want to do, that's the strength of the human will. And the third line said, to trust yourself to test your limits, that is the courage to succeed. That's interesting. 3 powerful lines. Yeah. And I remember, I said, man, you know what? Those are 3 lines that I'm going to memorize, I'm going to say every day, and I'm going to share with people, because we all want to be dreamers. If you're not a dreamer, you're going to stay in one place and you're going to be content. And we all find a spot in our lives where we can't do anything more. But if you have the will to do more, your mind's going to overpower your body. It's funny. And then to trust yourself. Trust yourself to test your limits. That's just telling yourself, why? think outside the box.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
When you stand up, talk, have an opinion. That's what the world needs now. We're not here to judge one another. We're here to have an opinion and be respectful of other people in the way that they live their lives. I truly believe that we're all going to be judged one day by a higher, more powerful authority than me or you. So let's make life better for one another. But I share those 3 lines. And the year was, I want to say 2000. And I flipped over the brochure. And do you know who those 3 lines were being used by then? American breast cancer. You know, words of encouragement to wives, to daughters, to aunts, sisters. And you go, wow, man, if they can give those words for American breast cancer, why can't we take those words or those 3 lines and share them in any aspect of life?
Yeah. And this is like another random kind of coincidence, and I'm probably going to butcher it again, but same book talked about, and this is now over 2,000 years ago, obviously in Latin and slightly different, but it was some version of mind which they had some type of consciousness label for, the principle of will and the discipline of action, which were sort of 3 pillars of either the Stoics or the followers of Socrates or something like that. So these they're almost like eternal themes, right? And you can you can kind of reshape them into the 3 motivational statements you just said, but it's like it strikes some chord internally, obviously, to kind of go that far back in time and read a book written back then, and then have you say similar things here today.
I always believe that, you know what, when you read a quote and you can put yourself inside the quote, and make that quote be meaningful to you, you can share that quote with whoever you meet. And another quote that I share with everybody is, I said, you know, life itself is a privilege. But to live life to the fullest, that's a choice.
Right?
I
like that. I like
it's
that.
a choice.
Yeah.
Which way do you want to live your life? Do you want to get the most out of your life, or are you content? If you're content, hey, and you're happy, you know, God bless you. If that's the choice you're going to make. But you still made that choice to be content.
True.
You know, my choice is to get the most.
You
know, I look at life like God gave me a fun ticket. And trust me, I've punched it out. You know, it's like going to Disney. They're going to tell me, hey, Marty, you can't ride that ride anymore. I'm going to say, just one more time. One more time. You know?
I wanted to ask you, Marty, so did you, when you post NFL, did you kind of put more effort into the foundation? Is that an accurate statement?
I put more into the foundation, so that I could get it, you know, have a solid, you know, headquarters. And then I started opening up other chapters, like George O'Brien, my head football coach. In 1987, we opened up a chapter in Florida. In 1989, we opened up one in New Jersey. Now we're in 14 states, and we're up and down the northeast. We have a chapter out in Texas. We opened up one in California.
That's interesting.
If there's a need, if there's a pediatric hospital, and there's pediatric hospitals everywhere. If there's a need, I want to open up the hospital, and I want to open up a chapter of the foundation. But the thing that I need is those people in the community to understand that there's a mission here. And it's not just raising money, it's raising the awareness of so many things that are going on in other people's lives, that because we live in the rat race Monday through Friday, what are we going to do? We don't even notice it. I take the same route to work for the last 24 years. And I never realized until I got behind a school bus that there was a house that had a handicap ramp there, until I got stuck behind the bus one day. And I saw the mom open up the door, and I saw her child in a wheelchair, severely handicapped. And they came down the ramp, and she recognized, you know, you could tell that she knew the driver, and the driver got out, and they put down the ramp, they put the wheelchair on it, they put the child in the school bus, and you could see the mother. She had another child with her, and she walked back in the house, and you just stop and you go to yourself, wow,
Yeah.
what is her life like?
Right.
Her small window of trying to do something for herself or the rest of the family is probably a 4 or 6 hour window every single day.
Mm-hmm.
But every single day she's waking up her child, giving her child a bath, feeding her child by hand, putting her child in a wheelchair, and then putting her child on the bus.
Yeah.
And see, we never stop to think about that.
No.
But when you do, you go, oh my God, we can do something for her.
Yeah.
We've got to be able to help her.
Yeah. Good point.
And if you don't slow yourself down and look at all the signs that happen, then you're not really enjoying life for what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great advice. It takes on a very rapid pace, and it can go by really fast. No doubt about that. One of the things Kenny was telling us, both your sons are physicians, or two
Doctors.
of your,
Right.
Was that because of your foundation work? Will they say that, or no, separate?
I think they were driven to get into the medical field ever since they were little kids, and having 4 kids and 3 boys and a daughter. I always said,
2 of your sons, yeah.
yeah, I always said, you know what, be the best that you can possibly be.
Mm-hmm.
And I had them working for me over at the Lantec Group. We're a construction company. They would come home every day covered with dirt, and they'd be miserable. Dad, I don't like doing this. I know you don't like doing it, but do you like the money?
Yeah.
They go, yeah, it's a great summer job. I said, well, then continue down the path that you want to be.
Yeah.
So I have my oldest son, Rocky's a doctor. My son, Jesse's a doctor. My Megan is a school teacher, or now they're called educators.
Fair enough.
And I get corrected every time I say she's a school teacher. So she is an educator. Yep. And my youngest son, Luke, is a aerospace engineer.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, early on when they were in high school, people would say, hey, are you kind of disappointed that, you know, your kids aren't playing football? I said, no, my kids are way smarter than me.
Yeah.
I said, you know what? I don't want to relive my life through their eyes.
Yeah, right.
I want them to be who they want to be.
Right.
And now that they're doctors, I say, you know, hey, they're really a lot smarter than I was.
What fields are
They're
they?
both in family practice, but
neat.
Jesse, after he got done doing his residency, he went and did 1 year in fellowship of sports medicine.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So he shadowed the New York Jets doctors. Now he's down there in Jacksonville. This past weekend, he got the call to work over at the Sawgrass TBC golf tournament.
Uh-huh.
You know, be the doctor on call on Thursday and, you know, Sunday. He got to see the athletes. But nobody needed him.
They're good.
So it's a great thing
Yeah.
for him to have on his resume.
Yeah.
You know,
sure.
I remember getting into broadcasting, going up and doing ESPN International and sitting in a soundproof booth in Bristol, Connecticut, and going, it's a beautiful night here in Denver.
Yeah.
No, I was in a soundproof booth up in Bristol watching it on TV.
Yeah.
And I was actually losing money.
Yeah.
You know, they were paying me $500, but by the time I drove to Bristol, by the time I got back, tolls, gas, and then I had another job at Payne Weber. But it was the experience.
Yeah.
It was getting it on your resume, using it to make that next step
That's
up.
neat.
And I think nowadays, a lot of the kids that I interview, and they're looking for a job, and you go, well, how much would you like? And the guy goes, well, you know, I did go to Villanova, and I want $90,000 a year, plus I need an expense card and a gas card. I go, well, wait a minute, you don't have any experience. They go, well, I went to Villanova. I go, well, then I guess you have student loans. They go, oh, no, my parents paid for it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's that sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
And I go, there is no sense of entitlement unless you earn it.
Yep.
You got to earn that, and you got to earn respect.
Yep.
And respect is a two-way street. You give it, you receive it. When people say, hey, well, he doesn't respect me, well, apparently you may not be respecting him back.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, human dynamics for sure. Do they? Your sons are part of the foundation. Do they work with you guys on
Yes, they're on the medical staff.
Okay. Is that on the ground level? Like, are they raising funds, reviewing cases?
They're reviewing applications.
Oh, wow.
And they all help with the fundraisers.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I think that they have a full commitment because they realize, you know, there's going to come a time where you have to pass the torch.
Yeah.
Well, you can't pass the torch if they're not ready.
Yeah.
It's just like you're setting them up to fail.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't want that.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of time that goes into it, a lot of energy that you have to have. And
Yeah.
I don't want it to consume their whole life. But I do want them involved.
Yeah, that's nice. It's just a nice touch too. And so you do that. Yeah, you're still doing some broadcasting. Too,
I do
right?
broadcasting. I do the Jet
Regularly?
games.
Yeah.
So this will
all
be,
season.
I believe, my 23rd year or 24th year working with Bob Wischusen.
Wow.
So we travel with the team. You get to know the players. You
Yeah.
get to know the coaches. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And trust me, you know, I've seen the Jet fans leave at the end of the third quarter. And, you know, I'm always optimistic. I'm saying, well, this year could be the year.
Yeah.
You know, last year Aaron came in and everybody forgot that the year before they lost their last 7 games, you know, and everybody was hyped up. The fans were hyped up and, you know, marketing was happy because all the suites were sold out, and 4 plays into the season, you know, the game changed.
Yeah. Brutal.
But you know, they're getting the right pieces in. I think Rob Saleh is a heck of a coach.
Yeah.
I think Joe Douglas is an excellent GM. I think they got all the tools.
Yeah.
But you got to stay healthy. And 17 games is a long season. They did eliminate one of the preseason games, so there's only 3 preseason games.
Okay.
And now with the players being the asset to the team and how well the team is going to, you know, play those 17 games is how healthy you can come out of preseason.
Yeah.
So a lot of the starters aren't playing a lot of preseason games.
Yep.
So what does that tell you?
Yeah.
You're going to see a lot of injuries early in the season when you have a veteran team that can start off in the first quarter of the game, being 4 games. If they can go 3-1 and you go 1-3, you have to dig a hole because now at some point of the season, you got to go 3-1 just to get to be 50-50, just to be 4-4.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you got to start off fast and win in September, and you got to close strong in December.
And based on the 23 years you've been doing the broadcasting, obviously, and then you kind of already attested to it with just that bit you said, I guess you enjoy that because it keeps you close to the game, keeps you close to players. You're traveling with the team. I guess probably also like actually doing the broadcast, you're able to add your experience to the analysis and all that kind of stuff. Anything you learned about the game from the broadcasting booth that you didn't appreciate as a player?
Well, I appreciate all of it, and I take all of it as corrective criticism. I've done high school games where you know that, you know, you can't be too critical, you can't be too objective because the only people watching are the parents. You know, I've done college games where, you know what, you point out mistakes a little bit more frequent. And in college games, doing radio, you got to pretend like you're talking to a blind person. I got to paint the picture to them.
Yeah.
So you can't see it. I don't have to be right all the time.
Yeah.
But I have to paint the picture. And these players are getting paid so that they don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
So I have to be objective and respectful. That's the number one thing I want to do. I want to be respectful to the athlete. But if you're supposed to hold containment and you don't hold containment and that guy gets around the corner and he runs for 20 yards, I've got to point that out. Even though this is my 45th year of being with the Jets. I love the Jets. I'm part of the Jets. I bleed green.
Yeah.
But my job is to paint the picture.
Yeah.
I have to keep the integrity of that broadcast to what the fans are expecting me to do.
Yeah.
But I try to be respectful. And, you know, sometimes, you know, when you see a quarterback throw so many interceptions and you kind of like say, hey, you know what, maybe it's time for you just to go on the bench. And you can start next week, but you know what, give the other guy a chance to go out there and let's see what he can do. You know, and believe me, all the players that I do criticize or I do say that they make a mistake, they're the first players that I talk to on the field before a game or after a game. And I tell them, I point it out, I go, hey, you know what? John Franklin Myers, you got to hold that containment. I said, and I look at a lot of films. So when I talk to them before the game, I give them hints.
Are you, maybe the question would be, do you find yourself better analytically since you're real-time processing the game and having to be respectful, but also having to paint a picture in real time? Have your analytical skills picked up from maybe your playing days where you were watching film, but then you're in the game? Like, is it a 30,000-foot view thing that you've gained? Is that a fair statement, or is that?
I think I've gained the respect of the players and the coaches and my partner, Bob Wachus, and he's excellent. He works for ESPN, and you hear him doing the, hockey games and college football, and he's always been a big Jet fan. I didn't know him when we first started. But there's a chemistry between us. I know when he's going to end. He knows how long I'm going to go on, and we try not to step on one another. So we try to complement one another while we're broadcasting and painting the picture. Does it work out perfect? Nothing works out perfect.
Yeah, it's going to be.
But I tell you, it's a lot easier when they're winning. We're pulling for them to win every single game to make not just our job easier, but so you can paint a better picture. You got a blank canvas. And you got to keep painting. And at the end of 4 quarters, if they don't win, well, what are we going to take out of this that's going to make us a better team next week?
Did you, not to beat this one to death, but did you get into broadcasting? Like, I've always loved listening.
By accident.
Really?
By accident.
I was wondering if it was like something as a kid.
Brian,
I always loved
it took me 41 years to get through college.
Yeah.
I finally graduated in 2016.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But that was a promise I made to Coach Bryant when I went in 1979. I said, Coach, I just played in the East-West Shrine game. I played in the Senior Bowl. They didn't have the NFL Combine at the time. So you had to go around to the individual pro teams, and they did the physicals.
Really?
So
over and over?
Over and over.
Oh, okay.
So I went to Cleveland. I went to the Jets. I went to Buffalo. I went to Tampa Bay. And I wasn't too much for going to the classes anyway. And I was falling behind, so I went in there, saw Coach Bryant, and I said, Coach, I just want to let you know I'm going to drop out of school. And I knew he was going to be upset. And I told him the reason why, and he stood up. He said, I fully understand. And then he stuck his hand out to me. He says, promise me one thing. One day you'll come back. I said, I do. So it took me 41 years to graduate. And my daughter was graduating in May of 2016. Wow. So the academic advisor for Alabama, he was all excited. He goes, you know what? We can fast track you. You can graduate in May with your daughter. And I looked at him. I said, why would I do that? Why would I take away her thunder? This is her day. And he looked at me. He goes, well, you think you can wait another 6 months? I looked at him. I go, I've waited 41 years. What's another 6 months? But I was glad I did it because I'm a little old school with the word commitment. You shake my hand. I don't need a contract. You shake my hand. You look me in the eye and you say you're going to do something. Then do it. Just do it. And Coach Bryant died on January 26, 1983. So nobody would have ever known about that meeting. There wasn't a witness that said, hey, you shook Coach Bryant's hand. I had that witness, and he was telling me every single day, hey, you know what? You made that promise to Coach Bryant. You speak so highly of him. He meant so much in your life. When are you going to honor your commitment? So, I eventually worked my way back into taking lines on courses, had some help from my son, Luke, had some help from other people down there that were really very, very committed and interested in getting athletes that left school early to play professional sport to come back and get your degree. Will that degree help you make more money? 9 out of 10 times, or almost 10 out of 10 times, it's not going to help that athlete make more money. But you're going to look up at that,
diploma
diploma sitting on your wall, knowing that it's not 1 year, it's not 5 years, 6 years. It took you 41 years to do it. And when I talk to parents that are going, well, my son and daughter, they're in their 6th year of college, I go, don't worry, man, it took me 41. Just support them the best you can.
Right. I wanted to ask you one last question. Where, like, when you are interacting with these families through the foundation now, and then you're at the age you're at with the experience you've had. I mean, you started this a while ago. What do you think you've taken from the game of football that you're giving to the kids you have through the foundation, if that makes sense? That's the right way to ask that question.
It might be reverse. I think it's what I've learned from the kids that makes you a better person. Mm-hmm. First thing you have to do is you got to listen. A lot of these parents, they just want to tell their story. And a lot of the kids, if they can't verbalize, you can just watch them and their action. You can see a smile when they walk in, when they get wheeled into the room or you go to visit them, they feel like there's somebody important. And as a football player or any type of athlete, anytime that they call your name, or when we ran out on the field in Alabama or with the Jets and you heard JETS and you heard the fans, calling your name out, you felt important. And for us to give these kids an opportunity to feel important and then hear their story, it's incredible. The first thing I realized that, none of these kids fear dying. None of them. They all know that they're here for a reason. They all know that their life is going to be short. But to make you understand that, if you have faith in God, then don't fear dying, because faith is believing in something you can't see. And if you have enough of it, when you do die, you'll get rewarded. You'll get to see everything that you believe in. So that's a story from a child.
Yeah.
That, here I am, 67 years old, still learning.
Yeah.
That, these kids have unbelievable strength. Now, the parents will struggle to find an answer.
Yeah.
A lot of the parents, if you look at the statistics, that they have a child, that they've lost a child, then they start to blame one another and they don't know how to go on, and that family ends up in a divorce or separation, because losing a child is the ultimate sin.
Yeah.
It proves to me that we don't live in a perfect world, because if we did, you and I would be burying our parents, our kids would be burying us, and our grandchildren would be burying our kids. It would just be a domino effect. But nothing hurts more than a parent that has to bury their child. And in a lot of situations, the family, because they work so hard and will do whatever they can to save the life of their child, they'll spend their last nickel. When the child passes away, they don't have the money for a funeral. So we get called in, and we have an extension to the foundation called the Dennis Berry Foundation. One of our board members that passed away, his wife said he was so dedicated, how can we help? And I saw a need. So we helped start the Dennis Berry Foundation to help offset the cost for a funeral.
Wow.
And I'll never forget that, the company I work for now, Lantec, I'd been there maybe a year, and the boy Steven passed away, and I was like the last one in, and the nurse called and said, hey, we need some help. We need to find $9,000, and we need to find it quick.
Wow.
Because there's no money for a funeral. So I was sitting at my desk. The owner, Mike Ryan, came in, and like I said, I only knew him about a year and a half, and he looked at me, he says, what's the problem? And I told him, I said, Stephen passed away and I need to find $9,000. And he says, so what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to try to find the money. And he looked at me, he says, no, I really mean it. What are you going to do? And I thought he didn't hear me. So I said, Mike, I got to find the money. I'm going to call up some people. And finally he said, no, I'm asking you, what are you going to do? I said, Mike, I don't know. He said, well, this is pretty easy. He says, you know what? I'll give you 3,000. My partner will give you 3,000, and you write a check for 3,000. And to this day, it's the best $3,000 I've ever spent.
Yeah.
So the people that I meet, I ask them, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? It's that simple. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know, are you going to volunteer your time? Are you going to donate money? Or are you going to donate thoughts and prayers?
Yeah.
Don't tell me you can't do one of the three.
One of the three,
You can do all three if you want.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And you throw that back on them with the sense that all of us can make a difference.
Yeah.
Because to make a difference, all you have to do is care.
Yeah.
Financially, you can always make more money. You can't make more time.
Mm-hmm.
So don't worry about the money you're spending today, because if you go back to work and you want to work, you'll make more money.
Mm-hmm.
But for that family that you donate $100 to, or you donate $500, or even if you donate $10, they're very grateful.
Yep.
That's why it's a beauty to have payroll deduction, because if you can't spend it,
Yeah.
if you don't see it, you can't spend it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I learned that by doing 401k plans in the world of financial advisor for Payne Weber,
Is that right?
telling people, hey, you to save is not just for the rich. To save is for the discipline.
Yeah.
You learn to live without it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you put it away.
Don't miss it most of
It's
the time.
payroll deduction.
Yeah.
But once I give you money, Brian, and then I ask you for money back, you ain't giving me money back. It's in your pocket. So I want to get it before it gets, get it before you get it in your check.
If folks hear this and want to donate either time or money or in some other way with an experience or something like that, what do they do?
Just go to MartyLyonsFoundation.org.
Yep.
And pick up the phone. Just say, hey, you know what? I want to volunteer my time, volunteer my resources. I have money I want to donate. And we'll get you involved. We'll show you exactly where the money goes.
Yep.
That's our mission. The more money we make, the more kids we can help.
And I think for donors too, that can be a friction point, right? They want to give money, but they want it going to the cause, not to.
Well, they want to see it. They want to touch
in
it.
action, right? Yeah.
And there's nothing more rewarding than when you see a child that you've helped.
Yeah, no kidding.
That you're making a difference in that child's life.
Yep.
And I have a great staff that works for the foundation. I have a great community up here in the tri-state area. We stretch all the way down to Florida. I just went to the North Carolina and South Carolina golf outing.
Yep.
The awareness that we're bringing, that people don't know that we exist.
Yep.
There's another organization out there called Make-A-Wish. They do a fantastic job.
Yep.
And I commend them for everything that they're doing. We're not Make-A-Wish. We do things differently.
Yep.
We run parallel with them, but we complement them. I'm not here to compete with anybody.
Right.
I'm just here to try to help as many kids as we can, and to make this world a little bit better for them while they're here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for your time today, Marty.
Oh,
really
my
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
My pleasure.
And we'd love to help. And anybody listening, obviously it's a worthwhile cause. I don't think that needs to be stated. And you heard the man, Marty Lyons Foundation. .org.
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 Yes.
All right.